Good morning and welcome to our Racial Reporting Convening. It's amazing to be in community with so many of you today. This is really family. It feels like a family reunion, even though some of us are meeting for the first time. I'm Amber Payne. I'm the publisher and general manager of the Emancipator, a digital magazine that is exploring and explaining solutions to racial inequality. The tragic deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor ignited a global awareness of inequities in 2020. As we reflect on the 3-year mark since the so-called racial reckoning, we know great distance has grown between the pledges made and the current state of affairs. Against the backdrop of a surge in racism, xenophobia, and the rise of white Christian nationalism in America, mainstream media has largely fallen short of meeting the demands of this urgent moment. And then there was another reckoning. You guys remember that one? The newsroom reckoning? We had a front row seat to that, many of us, right? And despite that so-called reckoning, racist narratives, problematic framing, and formulaic approaches to covering communities of color still persist and are often entrenched in the reporting, perpetuating stereotypes and catering to established power while neglecting community voices and needs. Newsrooms whose leaders committed resources and pledged to do better, well, many of them have pulled back on their coverage and reallocated resources as we head into the 2024 election. While promises were made to enact positive change, those commitments are now fading away, and many of you all know what I'm talking about. To counter this, a transformation in newsroom culture and narrative is imperative. We need to change the narrative, and we need to do it now. And this requires a fundamental shift in how journalists cover and report on racial and ethnic communities. It's time to rewrite the rules of racial reporting in America. And how are we going to do that? Well, the answers are right here in this room, right next to you. That's powerful. Right here in this room. Some of you are working inside legacy organizations. Some of you are building something new. Deborah Douglas, founding co-editor of the Emancipator with me. Deborah's here. We were hired in 2021, like probably a good amount of people, some people in here, to reimagine the first abolitionist newspaper for a new day. Using Black liberation as a point of entry into foundational ideas about freedom and democracy, we would explore the toxic impact of racism on all communities. We wanted to dissect and decode the structural underpinnings of white supremacy, which endanger us all. Because when our nation is pressed to live up to its ideals by addressing people underserved and abused by social policy and laws, history shows everyone benefits. We launched as a collaboration between Boston Globe Opinion and BU's Center for Anti-Racist Research. And we've now transitioned to be fully housed within Boston University. Now, Deborah was my partner for 2 years, and now she's helping newsrooms. She's building a hub for solutions journalism at her beloved Medill School at Northwestern University. Wesley Lowery's here. Wesley? And you'll hear from him this morning. Oh, there he is. Sorry, Wes. You'll hear from him this morning, and many of us know Wes, but there are probably a number of people in here that you don't know. And maybe you've seen their byline, you've read their work, maybe you haven't. Raise your hand if you're representing a nonprofit newsroom today. Okay. Woo, yeah, let's hear it. Did Candace Fortune make it? There she is. All right, Candace. Candace is the executive director of Outlier Media, and Outlier was designed to center and respond to Detroiters' needs, designed that way. They let the community decide what they should cover. And that's real audience engagement. Resolve Philly is here. And their work centers on improving how misrepresented communities are covered by the media. Because, and I'm going to quote them directly, I couldn't say it any better way. In this time of mistrust, political division, and industry upheaval, journalists must reconsider not only what they report, but how they find, frame, and tell stories. And you'll hear from Derek and Aubrey in our breakout sessions. And you'll go meet them over there. Did Susan Shearer make it? Susan, editor-in-chief of the Marshall Project. Along with engagement editor Nicole Lewis, also from the Marshall Project, is here, doing really important work. Public radio in the house? Lee Hill, over here, GBH, Callie from GBH. I was going to have Lee do some karaoke, but maybe later. Ricardo Sandoval from PBS is also here. And my friends down the street from WBUR, I know a good group of them are here today. You know, we have some journalists turned professors with us doing that important work, which is so needed, working with the youth, Austin, working at Harvard as an adjunct, we have folks here, though, from University of Maryland, Rutgers, Northeastern, American University, and Boston University. And Lisa Armstrong, who has been really helpful and instrumental in helping us plan from UC Berkeley, is here also, and you'll hear from her this morning. You know, we have some who've launched ERG groups, like Chiara Sotile, who didn't expect a shout out, at NBC, who started the Indigenous at NBCU group. And you might want to hear from her about how she did that. That might be something you want to do. How many of you got calls or calls back that summer from newsrooms eager to finally make their organization more reflective of their communities? Got some calls back, like, oh, hey, remember us? We called you a few months ago, and now we're back. And how many of you, you can raise your hands, have any combination of race, justice, equity built into your title? Yes. I think Nicole from CNN is here. There we go, Nicole Chavez, CNN. Russell Contreras from Axios, and Emmanuel Felton from the Washington Post, I think might have made it. Rosie from ABC Houston, okay? We see you with your race and equity and justice titles, and we feel you. And we are with you, because we've all been doing that, you know, without the title, or wanting to do that without the title. In 2014, when I was a producer at NBC Nightly News, I was given the opportunity to launch they called it the African American vertical. We need an African American vertical for NBC Digital, and I called it NBC BLK. And some of my mentors were skeptical. You know, my executive producer asked me, would you really want to leave the flagship network show? You know, 8 million viewers a night? Mentors asked me, do you think you'll get the resources? Legit questions. Are they giving you a budget? A team? And friends asked, do you think you'll be pigeonholed, you know, as only being able to do Black stories? My friends at Nightly already called me, joked that I was the senior Black producer, which I embraced that. I embraced that title. That same executive producer would tell us to think of Martha when we're pitching stories. He'd say, what's the tease? You know, what can we say in the headlines to get her husband to yell quick, Martha, come quick? And it was Martha It was not Martina. It was, it was Martha. It was just, as a young producer, I really learned quickly what they would go for, what kind of pitches they would accept, and hearing from them describe our audience, telling us, who our audience is. It didn't stop me from pitching stories about diverse communities, but it was discouraging. And it was discouraging to find myself caught in formulaic approaches to storytelling. But I wanted to do this work, and I wanted to do this work of amplifying our communities and centering them, and it became my calling. And we're here today to be in community with one another, because for many of us, this is our calling, to be doing this work for our communities. And we need that support. We need to share what's working. We need to share what challenges we have. And to ask, to really examine, can legacy newsrooms really change, or do we need to build our own? Or do what the ethnic press has done? So one of our goals with this convening is to come up with an open source style guide to help national news media and local report on race and ethnicity in an affirming and sensitive way. And what that looks like is really up to us. This is really kind of a working session, a working group. We want to come up with a guidebook or a playbook or a tip sheet or tip sheets out of this conference or convening. And we're going to be looking to you to help us to design what that looks like.